Hello, I'm Peter Bell, and I'm here with Mr. Jag Sandhu of NSJ Gold Corp. Hello, Jag.
How you doing, Peter?
Very well, thanks. Nice to be talking to you. I've also got a friend, John Fammy, on the line. John, hello.
Hey, Peter. How are you?
Great. Thanks for calling in, John. Nice to do another interview with you here. So, Jag's got an interesting story, and it's John who put it on my radar. So I wanted to include John on a call here with you, Jag, because I spent some time over the weekend studying your materials, and I liked what I saw, and talked to you briefly before, and liked the story. So keen to hear more. Is this
excellent?
Is this basically the first new issue for you?
No. I've been involved in the mining capital markets almost for 20 years. I have taken a number of companies public and listed them. I've also raised a lot of money for various companies throughout my career. I've done stuff in Africa, done stuff in Turkey, North America, Canada, and also the U.S. So I've had a few companies that I've been involved with over the last few years.
And this NSJ Gold Corp, this is a new listing on the CSE, and you are the CEO.
Correct. Yes. NSJ is a company that I founded last year. I actually wanted to get a project in North America. So I reached out to a friend of mine that I've done a lot of work with, Richard Kern. He's based in Reno, Nevada. He's done extremely well in Western U.S., worked for major and also junior mining companies, found a few mines down there. So I had reached out to him, told him, look, I'm going to put a new deal together and I'm looking for a good project. And he showed me this one, the Golden Hills project in Arizona. When I first looked at it, it looked really interesting, had some good historical drill results on it, which Richard actually had drilled from with various other companies that he was involved with in the past. So the project looks good. I ended up optioning the project last year. I spent some money on the project, raised about $2.3 million in cash, and we just listed it on the CSE under the symbol NSJ on, I think it was March the 8th was our first trading day. So from forming the company in August of last year to listing it, we moved fairly quickly. So we're quite happy to be listed, and I also got it listed over in Frankfurt as well too now.
Yep, I saw a bunch of news flow recently, a few IR contracts, stuff like that happening.
Yes, I've hired a couple of guys. One guy in particular in Toronto, Simone Capital. He's got a really good network of investors that he deals with. And then I also hired a German outfit out of Hanover to do some advertising for us, just to get our word out there. Because we're a new issuer, not too many people know us. So we're trying to get, trying to be proactive and try to get, reach out to as many investors as we possibly can. Because, we've got a really good story here. Gold is performing very, very well. And predominantly our project is gold, and it's got copper as well too. And as you guys know, copper has been doing very well as well too. And I think copper is going to continue to do well, especially with the electrification of the planet, right?
Yeah, Arizona, man, too, right? Like all the jurisdictions to be.
Yeah, it's the project it's in Arizona, and it's 30 miles from a small town called Parker, and the location is perfect. We are about 100 miles to the east of a project called the K Mine, which are developing a mine there, and then we're 70 miles just to the south of the Moss Mine. The Moss Mine is a project that was discovered by Richard Kern. It is the largest pure gold and silver mine in production in Arizona. I think that market cap of that company, I think it's about 160
by Northern
million
Verdict
or something like that.
Yeah.
Northern Verdict. That's right. Yeah. So he's the one that discovered that. So Richard definitely knows, where to look and how to find these things, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, excellent addition to the team there.
And what's the formula, John? It started an old mine?
Yeah, always start an old mine, look at the old showings on historical patented claims, and work from there. Absolutely. So.
And I enjoyed studying the NSJ, the 43101 that Richard Kern had wrote there, because it has some details on where the patented block was. It's about 130 acres on one of the old blocks, and looking at the location of one of the hot trenches, lining things up, and I was able to find, the surface disturbance on Google Earth, just looking around there from one of the hot spots that there had been some drilling done and some trenching. And I don't think there was any old underground mining, but that's definitely on a patented claim. And, the history of those patented claims is really significant, right? Because it predates the modern American mining law and comes with a bunch of special rights, surface rights, mineral rights, and, some archaic, kind of obscure legal stuff may seem like to junior mining speculators, but it's brownfields. That's kind of the thing that sticks with me, is like, if they went through the trouble of making these claims, getting these claims 150 years ago in the 1800s or whatever it was, and then it was mined in the 1900s, we should be looking at it in the 2000s.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So we've got 7 patented claims, and then our patented claims are surrounded by 94 unpatented claims that we control. The 7 patented claims, as you mentioned, Peter, we don't require drill permits to go drilling there. So, we started drilling last week, actually about 2 weeks ago now, and we're drilling in the area where the historical drilling has been done. So on these patented claims, some of the historical drill numbers that are also listed in our 43101 report that was reviewed by Richard Kern, but it was actually authored by Bob Lunsford. We were hitting from surface, right? These are high-grade veins, so sitting basically at surface. 4.5 meters of 34 grams per ton gold, 1.5 meters of 102 grams per ton gold. So these are very, very good numbers, and they're not that deep. They start from 19 meters. Some of them start from 23 meters down, which is what you want, right? The gold sitting at surface. And it's also weathered, right? This is a very important piece of this particular property. The ore is oxidized. So we did some metallurgical work on the ore, the previous owner did. And, just using simple gravity separation, we were able to cover 90% of the gold. And then with the cyanidation process, we got 99% of the gold. So just simple gravity separation, 90% of the gold recovered is very, very good.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I like to see in your presentation materials too, is that you actually did the gravity test work.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
so the cost of mining, if we were going to put this into production, the cost of mining is not going to be that expensive, right?
Yeah. And cyanide leach, yes, of course, you can get all the gold out. If you run an idea for you, maybe enviro leach, you're probably going to get the same numbers. Technical audience may not care about that, but some of the people thinking about the promotional angles and ESG talk and everything like this, right? There's alternatives to cyanide that, in the future.
Yes.
You talk about permit light, and if you're not handling hazardous materials, and you're using this enviroleach type stuff rather than cyanide at your patented block as well, then it really opens things up, in a community social aspect. But you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere here anyways, in the desert, in mining country, so it's not like doing cyanide leach. Vat leach, I'd hope you do vat leach rather than a heap leach, getting a little bit into the details and stuff there, but this is a place that understands mining, and you're working with people who have a clue. The continuity on the technical side is really important. I really like to see Kern being involved there with USQP or as VP exploration, and then as somebody who kind of shepherded the project for years as well before that too.
Yes.
that continuity is really important strategically, right? Because he really owns a lot of the ideas and he has a lot of the knowledge, right? So very bullish setup there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you've hit the nail on the head. He's the one that's putting together all the drill programs for us. He's actually on site right now, monitoring the drilling. Yeah. So he knows where to go to find this stuff, and because he's worked on this property quite some time.
And can I ask about that current drill program, right? Because I didn't see a map in any of the news releases or pitch deck, sketching out where the first program would be. The 43-101, it has a bunch of targets and stuff that it talks about. But it is the 7 patented claims is a pretty small area, but around that, the larger land package, there's a bunch of different things to go look at. So I understand, focusing on the patented to start for the timelines on permitting. But is it really around that old trench that was hot where you're drilling, or what's the plan?
Yeah, so we're drilling on some areas that we've already drilled before in the past on the patented claims, but then we're also stepping away from that and drilling new areas, but still on the patented claims that Richard feels the veins are actually going towards. So confirming some of the historical drilling that's been done, and then also doing additional new drilling as well too.
Nice. Awesome. Yep. RC.
Yes, RC. Yeah, RC, and like some people say that RC is not a good way of drilling. Some people like it, some people don't. But you really get into issues when you're doing RC if you have water. But we don't have any water here at all, right? So we're going to do the RC first, and then we'll follow that up with core drilling, depending on what we get back with the RC drilling. But our recoveries have been very, very good so far, so we don't have any issues whatsoever.
Yeah, and we're talking about pretty shallow targets here
100%.
Right now, anyways.
Yeah,
too.
very shallow. Yeah.
I wonder if you have a number about what a near-surface envelope might contain in terms of tonnage and grade. Like that's a resource. What I'm asking for is like a resource number, and I know you can't provide that without all the work that goes into supporting that. But yeah. I'll just mention to you that like the BCSC allows for issuers to, and the 43-101, it allows for issuers to give numbers on grade and tonnage so long as they're in a range. And there's some support about how you arrived at those. And it doesn't need to be, a fully rigorous CIM standard, resource to have those rough numbers to start with, right? You can be talking about a conceptual target of 250,000 ounces or 500,000 ounces or 2 million ounces if you really think the strike is there and you want to talk about, this depth and all you really need to start waving your arms about that kind of stuff is a few cross sections, and then some surface mapping to kind of establish continuity over one dimension, and then some intercepts on depth to try and add a second dimension, and wave your arms about the third dimension if you have to. That's Richard Kern might get a little uncomfortable if we start asking him to put numbers on it like that. But then again, he may be entirely comfortable doing that, and I haven't seen that in any of your materials yet. But I'd love to see some stuff like that. Where we might be headed to.
Yeah. Well, we've got obviously, back of the envelope kind of calculations in our head. We just don't want to put those numbers out there yet. But, and we also kind of.
Well, you are allowed. You are allowed. There is scope in the policy for you to publish numbers like that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a well-known thing, but it's a little nuanced part of 43-101 that so long as you provide a range on the grade and tonnage numbers, and it's not just a particular point estimate, and you're plus or minus. They don't even say it has to be plus or minus 20%, 50%. There's no specific guidelines on that. They just want you to have a range, and they want you to have a bottom-up model and to kind of explain it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that would be something for Richard maybe to to look into, but. What we want to do is
Are there any active mines in the area too? Because thinking about toll milling, people who might need some oxide feed.
Well, the Moss Mine is only 70 miles away.
Yeah, and they're talking about. I've heard them talk about increasing the scale. I think they're through phase one. Like they finished mining. I think they had 200 acres of patented ground, and I think they've emptied their pit as deep as they could go, and then they put their heap leach on part of their patent, so they can't really go and mine under there now, even if there's grade. So they, their heap leach is there, and as long as they're circulating fluids, they'll keep collecting gold. Like those things pay on a long tail, but
Yeah.
it would be nice for them to either look at some higher grade blend or something like, what next for the Moss mine, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm not too sure exactly what level they are at. Sounds to me that you've been following them quite closely. But yeah, I mean,
well,
they got.
I'd love to see you do some mining at your site and then run your stuff through the gravity concentrate, right? And then
exactly,
you're getting 80% of the gold with 10% of the weight, and then you can 90%, right? And what's the mass reduction too? If you're losing all that mass, you can talk about shipping that stuff, transporting that stuff to the Moss mine without eating up your margins on trucking costs potentially.
100%. And if you look at the slides, you'll see Chris Zerga. He's one of my directors, and he's a mining guy. You can read his bio there, but he's a mining guy. I met him in 2009. I was involved with a company called Scorpio Gold. I raised them a pile of money, and we put that mine into production in Nevada called Mineral Ridge. And Chris has been there since 2009. So he knows what he's doing when he's putting mines into production. So, when we do want to make that decision, he's the perfect guy to have on our board.
Yeah, that rawhide mining deal with EMX, I've never heard of that before, but that jumped out at me with EMX owning 20% of a private company called Rawhide.
I know. Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, he just started working there as well too. He left Scorpio Gold. He's still a director, so he's been working there for like 8-9 months. And to be honest with you, when I showed him my NSJ Gold project, he looked at it and right away he said, "Jag, I want to get involved." He liked it that much.
Yeah. Well, and that's cool that he's general manager of Rawhide, because
exactly.
Those people, man, like those people are so valuable. The people who can actually run a mine, and I don't like in an American context in Nevada and Arizona. Those people, I think we're in a shortage of those people in the next 5-10 years or whatever. Like I don't know that, but I have this sense.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right, Peter. And Chris, he's got so much knowledge, and Richard does as well too. Like sourcing equipment, sourcing people, sourcing the staff. I mean, it's like they've got it all handled. It's perfect. We just got to go find the gold now, which we know it's there. We got to go drill and confirm it.
Well, and the beauty of patented claims is you can go above and beyond what people normally do, right? And you can jump into bulk sampling, right? Like you could follow up on that trench that's been done with the grade and the gold, and you could start blasting. And there's not many. Sometimes these patented claims are kind of close to towns or cities or people living around, but this one you're off. There's nobody living nearby that's going to get upset.
Exactly.
With blasting, from what I can see, right? And the road access is good. Like
you just drive right up to the property, 100%. Yeah, it's a perfect location. I mean, I've done stuff in Ghana, like we're talking, in the middle of the jungle, right? I mean, this is like, you drive to the property in a Cadillac, right?
And you own the ground. You can walk on the ground. You probably have a mill patent too somewhere, and you have water rights or something. Who knows?
We do. Yes, I think we do. We do have the water rights. Richard was saying.
Yeah, it's often is that way, right? Like, wow.
Yeah. No, it's a perfect location for us. You fly into Phoenix and then drive to Parker, which is 130 miles away. Parker's, it's a decent town. It's got a nice few nice hotels there, and then from there, it's only 30 miles to the site.
And the Little Butte mine is the name of the mine that I found, and I'm just reading the 43-101, and I see mention of trying to de-water the underground workings in the 1960s, and that was unsuccessful. Beautiful. These setups where you have an old underground mine working that's flooded, and you're off in the middle of the desert in Arizona somewhere, like the value of that water, if you get into core drilling and you're really, you need water, you're drilling deep, you're drilling a 500 meter hole, you want water becomes really important. Having that water in the old workings is so valuable. And there's so many other ways that you can use it at site. And even if you're going to start doing gravity, if you're really going to get some tables and some, set up your own gravity circuit, you're going to need water for that. And to have this groundwater, this source of groundwater, it's really, really bullish setup. And just to mention also the supergene enrichment phenomenon that happens here. And that's very common in Arizona as well. Took me a while to kind of wrap my head around the details of that. I still don't understand all the chemistry and everything, but the basics are pretty simple, right? Where you get a really high grade zone of secondary copper and gold and it can be silver as well, depending on what the original, sulfides were higher up and how they've oxidized and moved down, and then they kind of congregate and they accumulate at the level of the water table.
Yeah.
So, is there any sense of anybody drilling that deep? I didn't see any holes that could have been that at your project.
Not that deep. Yeah, not that deep. But you know what? The other potential on our property is a potential for porphyry, copper or gold porphyry on our property, but that's going to be deep drilling. Yeah. We're going to start doing some initial work on that. That's if we hit something like that, that's a huge company builder, right? So when we start doing the work on the porphyry system, then we'll be doing more deep drilling. But before we go there, we want to do some surface sampling, so on and so forth, and also do some geophysics. Maybe do an airborne. We've got our geophysicists doing some work on it right now as we speak. So, but that's going to be that will entail the deeper drilling that we'll be doing.
Well, so what about some of the drone? There's all these cool drone geophysics things that are pretty handy now. That are not really for the deep targeting, right? If you're going to go after this kilometer deep target, you got to bring in this heavy ground, geophysics equipment. But for some of this light, shallow stuff, you can get a really good base digital model, right? Like digital topography, and then hyperspectral imaging is one thing I like, and the magnetics is really common. A lot of the basics you can get on base pretty quickly and pretty cheaply.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have much experience in the drone stuff, but if it's something that can provide value, I'm sure Richard, will definitely review it, right?
It's something that I see happening right now. It's something that I see stories in the last year that companies have been yep, this was a game changer for us. So the theme is always old things in new places, right?
Exactly.
Yep. And you have an old place that's an old mine, and there's some potential for some really nice show samples, at surface, near surface, right? And you get those going, you get the market excited with some of that, and then you start to provide some of this more esoteric stuff too, and kind of feed the news flow on both sides there.
Absolutely.
100%.
It's a very good share structure too there, Jag. Ton of upside there. Just under 7 million market cap, and lots of room to run in a bull market. So,
23 million. I'm seeing 23 million shares out and warrants, and there's warrants at 40.
Yes. So fully diluted, 34
diluted number. Nice.
34.6 million fully diluted. Perfect. And of which, a lot of those warrants, and because we're a new listing, right, the insider stock, my stock, the director's stock, it's all escrowed over 3 years. So there's 14 million shares that are escrowed over 3 years starting on March the 8th. 10% gets released at listing, and then every 6 months, 15% gets released.
Okay. 14 of your 23 issued and outstanding are escrowed?
Correct.
Fantastic. John, I think John likes that.
That is fantastic. Yeah.
So how do you get some buying in the name then? right? That's if you can drive some buying into the stock.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's very thin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you thought about getting a market maker or anything like that to add some depth if people want to? Like, there's some stock on offer,
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at some market makers. Maybe that's something that we should consider. I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. Maybe that's something that we should look at. The stock doesn't.
It's expensive. It's expensive. It's a chicken and the egg thing, right? It's expensive, and a lot of junior mining executives they say, well, how can I justify spending my IR budget on market maker when our stock doesn't trade? And it's like, well, maybe your stock doesn't trade because there's no depth, and if you don't have depth, like, it's how are you gonna, do you have price discovery? If there's no depth, where's what's your price discovery? And for your next financing, like, what happens if somebody, you go talk to the wrong person when you're trying to arrange your next financing, and all of a sudden your stock's down because why? Well, we didn't have any sellers, but it didn't take a lot of selling because there was no buyers either. Like, you want to have a thicker market so you don't get pushed around.
Yes. I think what if we keep on doing some additional marketing and so on and so forth, and some advertising, get our name out there, and hopefully get some good numbers on this current drill program and do some promotion. Once you get some liquidity in the stock, but you're right. I mean, if it's thinly traded, it can fluctuate quite a bit, right?
Yeah, but it results in the name of the game. Like, you should be in the business of generating exploration news, not managing your stock.
Exactly. And so, I mean, like I said, there's some good numbers, historical numbers, which have been confirmed by our 43-101. And, some of these were drilled as early as 2016. So, but back then, gold wasn't running how it's running right now. So, if we can come up with these sort of numbers on this drill program, I think it'll bode well for the market.
And the option terms and stuff too, it's not gonna crush you in terms of the expiration obligations or the property payments.
100%. To be honest with you, I think after this drill program, we would have already covered up to year 3, I believe, because we're spending about $300,000. Yeah. I spent $85,000 last year. $150,000 has already been done. We're going to spend about $400,000 on this program. So yeah, probably going to be into the year 3 at least.
Smart. Tight new issue. It's great to see this. The market needs this, right? We need news stories with legs to stand on. That we don't want to be waiting for permits too either. We don't want to be shut down by seasonality. Maybe August to July is a little difficult to work, but you can still get it done out there. There's a lot of things.
I mean, you've hit the nail on that. Like I know deals that they raised a pile of money and then they went to go get permits, and they're still stuck. They still haven't got their permits, and they're sitting idle waiting to get the permits.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Well, and that's why it's good to have a collecting properties too, right? And so, how do you feel about being a sole property new issue?
In terms of just only having one property in the company?
Yeah,
it's a good property. I mean, which is fantastic, and the patented claims allows us to keep on. But having said that, we are going to be looking to stake more additional ground. Richard's actually reviewing that data as well too. So we'll be expanding this as well.
Yeah. Would you expand on Little Butte and Golden Hills, or would you try and get something else?
I was going to ask Jag, are you guys planning to expand the land package in terms of staking in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, exactly right. Unpatented claim to be taken additional on that to increase the land holdings. And then there's the land holdings within our land holding, and Richard is talking to those guys as well too to see if we can do it.
Gotcha. Did you say that there's somebody else who has some other patented ground next to you or overlapping you that you don't own?
Not overlapping, but it's next to us, yes. With within our unpatented claims.
That's right. It's to the south of you, hey? It's just on the southern border.
Exactly, yeah. So you'll see it, if you look at the presentation, you'll see it in there.
Yeah, that's what that yellow stuff was. Other patented claims.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So Richard knows
that in the map. So I was trying to wonder.
Yeah. So Richard knows who these landholders are. So we're in discussions with them as well too.
Well, but sometimes they want some goofy prices too, right? Like
100%.
Studied a lot of the patented claim deal flow in Arizona, and somebody has a deal. It's like $10,000 a year. It's like a 20-year earn-in, or they can buy it for $1.5 million cash for like 100 acres.
Wow.
So you take that deal to Canada, and people are like, "What do you mean 100 acres for $1 million US? Are you kidding?"
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if it's the right 100 acres, guys, like if there's a high grade deposit,
fit a mine on there,
sitting on there. Come on.
Then it's worth it. Then it's worth
and that's
it.
what you're in that ballpark. You're in that game. You potentially have a setup like that.
Exactly, yeah.
So what's it going to take for the market to show the market that you have, discovery, something for Mr. Market to get excited about?
I think a little bit. We got numbers on the table, right? So let's see what this current drilling program comes up with. We'll be finished drilling by the end of this week, and then ship the samples to the lab. And it all depends how busy they are, 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks turnaround. And then we can sit down and see, right?
And do you have any other like geological programs? Like we talked about geophysics and stuff, but do you have like any geological mapping beyond what's in the 43101 or anything?
Yeah, we're going to start doing additional work on the unpatented claims as well too. Like as I mentioned, on the porphyry potential. So we hired a geophysicist. He's actually going and assembling all the data that he can collect. And then we'll, zero in and look at all that information and then do some groundwork and then figure out what we're going to do next. Drilling. Yeah.
I just to say that I'd like to see like some basic geological mapping and it's been done. There is geological mapping. I've seen like on the regional scale on the MinDat website, MacroStat, they've got a pretty nice map that shows that you're right on the edge of a granite intrusion, which is a good place to be. But that's a really, regional, like broad scale map. And then the stuff in the 43101, there's some mapping as well in there that's kind of partial coverage of the project area and doesn't.
Yes.
I'm not, or it just marks the patented block mainly as alluvium or something like that. It's just like, oh, this is just an area of cover, and people may think the market doesn't care about good maps, but I think it does because there's a whole bunch of quasi analysts like. People out there talking about junior mining stocks, right? Like it's a pretty thin ecosystem of investors, right? And some of them are pretty sophisticated, and they sort through opportunities pretty quick, and they have a checklist of kind of like basic geological information that they want to see, to take a story seriously. And they don't need to have all the things on their list, done or whatever, but they want to have a sense that you're working towards some of those basic things. And their list oftentimes is pretty similar to what the majors list might be. So if you were lucky enough to get a bigger company to, come in here and spend tens of millions of dollars with you having a carried interest to a production scenario, like in a bullish scenario, stuff like that. Like those big companies, they're going to do a lot of that kind of boring work. And it's up for debate, should the junior do any of that, or should you let the partner do it? You don't have to try and do everything, but doing some of that stuff, it makes for good promotion too. Like having good maps and having good field photos and videos from site. Like I'd really love to see, stuff from Richard Kern, because he's a credit, and his experience with this project. Like, he's the kind of guy, you send him around site with an ATV and a GoPro camera, somebody filming him for a few days. Who knows what kind of stories you're going to get out of stuff that he's found over here and stuff he heard about over here. And, we just stumbled on a new working. Yeah, we didn't know about this one, but yeah, there it is. Okay, cool. Oh, and a dump over here, blah, blah. Like, it's an adventure. It's an adventure scenario, I think, with these projects like you have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so Richard does have detailed mapping. Like, when he sent me the information on this, I've got like files and files and files of maps and data and all that stuff. So he does have, zeroed in and lots of detailed maps and stuff.
Well, let's get it out there. Let's get it out there. It's, that's a big part of the promotion. And there's people like the Gold Council, the Gold Shareholders Council, I think they call themselves. Shareholders Gold Council, something like that. And it's a bunch of the big institutional investors in kind of the junior mining business. And they publish like a letter annually giving their recommendations, like an open letter to gold company CEOs and boards. And one of the things they talk about is data rooms. And they're just like, please maintain active data rooms without onerous entry conditions.
Yeah.
And people say, who needs a data room for a thin stock, like a new issue with a project that's not well known, you need more data rooms than most companies, because you don't have the brokerage, you don't have the investment bankers who know your project, you don't have the newsletter writers, you're kind of out there on your own. So the radical transparency, a Ray Dalio term, is one of the things that I like to throw out there, because the internet and the cloud, everything, right? Like, it gives you ways to share data that, like, in the past would have been, prohibitive to share all these files. It's too much data. How do you, but now it's like, okay.
Yeah, and digitalizing those files.
Yep, it's bullish. There's an audience for it. There's an audience, people that are hungry for info. And if you feed them that info, it doesn't immediately show up on the bid per se, necessarily, but it can.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. I should talk to Richard about that and maybe put something together. That shouldn't be a problem to do.
Well, and as the drilling results come out too, like, you really want to prep the market with coming to understand about who you are and what you're working on, because this isn't a recycled project, Jack.
Exactly.
Right? Like, there's a bunch of projects out there, and even in Arizona, where there's a bunch of investors who already know the story from 10 years ago, and it hasn't changed because the company never raised any money to do any meaningful work, and they just sat there, whatever. It happens a lot in the exploration business. It's a really capital intensive, so if you have a new story like this, which, as far as my reading of it, it was like, this is screaming new story, and it gives you street cred too. People will look at you and they'll take everything else you do more seriously, going forward. And again, benefit of being in with Richard Kern and other people like that on the team. And but sometimes these geologists, they're not so promotional. So that's one of the things John and I like to do, is stick our nose into stuff that maybe we don't really understand, is kind of outside of our background per se. But it's like, look, we're coming at this from investors' side, and
yeah.
And we really like the companies that are responsive like that, and some of them are.
Yeah,
and I think you are, from what I've seen so far. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll talk to Richard and see what we can do. Put together some sort of Dropbox or something that people can have access to, right?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to see it. I know John.
That's a great idea, Jake.
Yeah. John, you can have a look at Google Earth too. I shared the locations of the project. Like, I mapped out the main patented block that they have and stuff, and you can go and have a look at where it is on Google Earth. And it's like, okay, I haven't seen anything else in La Paz County. This is a new area for me. So,
Jake, how long did you say? I didn't catch that, but how long are you from the Moss mine, approximately? In terms
70 miles. 70 miles.
70 miles. Okay.
Yeah, 70, 80 miles, just to the south.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Along a highway 95, John. Go up Highway 95, I-95.
Yep. It's all on the same trend. Yep.
And that's crazy, because I think Highway 95, I-95, doesn't it come up here in the Pacific Northwest or something too? You're like, no, it's I-5.
Good question.
95 and I-5, different highway. Yeah, I'm confused. And treasury and stuff like that too after this drill program.
We'll have about $1.5 million.
Really? That's pretty good. 1.5 Canadian, 1.5d million.
Yeah, 1.5 million Canadian, and then we'll figure out, what we're going to do next with it, right? Where we're going to drill and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's definitely a good, it's a decent cash position. We will be raising more money, obviously, but I think that the next round that we're probably going to be doing is potentially going to be, looking to go do the porphyry drilling, right? The deep drilling, but that entails a lot of money, right?
Well, get some high grade gold numbers out first. Yeah. If you can get some high grade gold numbers out of this RC stuff that you're doing now, like if that goes well, and then you have a 40 cent bid on the stock that's actually there.
Yeah.
Then you can talk about raising five. I don't know. If you start porphyry hunting, it's what, $5 million raise minimum, like, and that's just starting it out. Like porphyry stuff can be really expensive.
That's right. Yeah.
But when you have these gravity recovery numbers just off the oxide, it's like, look, could you, production is a nightmare scenario, but there's a lot of moving parts to going and taking something into production is very stressful. It's not, the company's not necessarily built for putting something big into production, but contract miners, there's contract miners in Arizona. There's people you could hire to bring out to site, right? And to start scratching away at some of the oxide stuff on your patented block and,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I think even a few hundred ounces, even a few hundred ounces a quarter, even like 1,000 ounces a quarter, like if you're able to get that at a super low capital intensity, and a very high speed, and you can get some profit off of it, like without even going to the full leaching circuit, just off the gravity recovery. Like,
yes. Yeah, and then the exploration will be covered 100%.
Yeah. And arguably those small scale production scenarios, those are exploration stories really, because what you're doing is kind of pulling back like some oxide, some vein, some outcropping vein, and just starting to chase it down. And then, you take 10 meters of that back, and then you can drill from there and start to talk about, is the supergene zone there, and do we see indications of where heat source might be and plumbing system, start talking about the deeper porphyry story. It's dusty work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what else on the team wise? So it's you and Richard as VP Exploration and QP, and then the directors, and Rodney Stevens, right? Yeah, this Vice President Corporate Development. Can I ask about him?
Yeah, so I met Rodney about 10 years ago when I think I met him when he was at Solomon Partners. He was an analyst there, and he was financing mining companies. He's raised a lot of money for various deals. Now he's kind of an independent guy, raises money, and just works on his own deals. So he's one of my directors. He's kind of a technical / finance guy. So he's got really good connections in the capital markets here in Canada. I think he's got good connections over in Europe as well too. So he's a very good asset to our team.
Fantastic. Just looking at Discovery Harbor there briefly. Mark Field.
Yeah, that's a deal that that's in Nevada. I mean, there's a classic example on trying to get their drill permits. They still haven't got drill permits on that one yet.
Brutal. Yeah. And they're playing ball with Newcrest.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's a deal from March 2021. Yeah. Big things happen there.
They had 45 million shares when they announced that deal. I couldn't believe it. Rodney couldn't believe it. The volume, the liquidity that came in.
And so now they're up to 95 million shares. So did they do a bunch of financings, or was that a direct investment from Newcrest?
I don't know if Newcrest put money in. I think they optioned their property or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's an earn-in. Yep.
Earn-in, right? Yeah. The financing was done before. Like Rodney raised, I think, $3 million for the deal last year. Or was it this year? I think it was last year. Yeah.
1.5 million in the first year by Newcrest, and 10 million in the second year, which takes them to 51% in the project, and then 20 million in total expenditures by to earn 65% and then 75% with a PEA. And they have to do the PEA in up to 24 months. So that's a pretty bullish option deal. That's a very aggressive timeline, and those numbers are very large. I like that deal a lot.
Yeah.
Low sulfidation epithermal gold in Nevada. Beautiful. That's right. And a caldera too. Those geological settings where people are talking about these calderas as, you know, these old volcanic sites. Juicy. Like
yes, that was a good deal for them.
Yeah, and a good connection for you to have too with him. You know, he's VP. It says he's interim CFO there at Discovery Harbor too.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a pretty nice position to have an analyst, a former analyst. Salmon Partners as well. What a great part of Canadian junior mining, natural resource history. You know, they did stuff in oil and gas, other natural resources too. They were really a credit to the business.
That's right. Exactly.
Terry Salmon and stuff too. Lots of respect.
Yeah. Yeah, he knows Terry Salmon very, very well.
It's amazing. Yeah, people that I don't know. John, do you recognize those names?
Not top of my head, but they sound familiar.
Yeah, it's before our time to a large degree, John.
Likely so. Yeah.
I wonder what do you think the future of the business looks like, Jag?
For NSJ?
More the same, or? Yeah, for NSJ and for junior mining in general, you know, Arizona, Canada, like.
I think we're on a big bull market here. I'm thinking we're in a super cycle here with commodity prices rising, and I think they're going to continue to rise. It's been slow, as you know. Gold has finally recovered, and the market's back. Copper, gold, you name it. I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be good for guys like us, right?
Yeah. I don't think it started yet. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So is the opportunity, it's ours to lose or something like that? You know, it's
Hello?
Yep. Can you hear me? To say, like, is the opportunity ours to lose or something?
How do you mean?
Well, you know, you talk about this bull market, but people lose money in bull markets. I'm sure there's people out there who've lost money on Bitcoin, which is kind of hard to imagine, but you know.
I think the key, right, is you got to source out deals that haven't moved, right? Source out deals with good management teams, with good projects, decent cash balance, but they haven't really appreciated in value, right? So I mean that's where the opportunities are lying. I'm thinking.
I agree.
Gold I think is going to continue to rise. If it breaks through 2,000 again, you're going to see these deals take off all over again, right? I mean, I was involved. Like I remember, I got involved when gold used to be at $250 an ounce or $300 an ounce, and I remember when it broke through $500 an ounce, people were like, "Holy smokes!" Everything just went through the roof, right?
But then gravity weighs heavy. Gravity weighs heavy on these companies with no revenue, too. You know, and these guys, like we joke about, the Fed's printing so much. Who prints more than the Fed, right? House Street. So
exactly.
How do you get caught? How do you avoid getting caught in these sand traps or these quicksand scenarios where the companies are, spending money and getting nowhere? And I think you know the answer to that, and I think you're doing the things that are the the way that you avoid those problems. So
yeah.
I'll just give a couple shout outs to some friends on Twitter. Somebody posted an article today about the process for finding future 10-baggers on CEO.ca, and a couple guys chimed in. One of them said luck, price, upside, and luck. And another guy said price, float, promo, and promo. So it's pretty simple. In some of these guys, they keep it pretty simple, right? These market operators. And I think I see a lot of those elements at play with what you're talking about here, Jag. So
yes, so true, right?
Is there going to be a financing or anything, or if we want stock, we got to go buy in the market? For now.
Yeah, I think for now it's just going to be in the market. We will be raising money. I just don't know exactly when. But with junior mining companies, we don't have cash flow, so we'd always got to be looking to raise capital, right? Ideally, I like to do it, at a decent valuation. But we have enough money now to, implement our business plan. Go do what we said that we were going to do in our prospectus when we filed it. We've actually already done all that. Now we just got to wait and see what the drill results look like, and then, finalize on what work we're going to do next. And promote.
And you got to promote. You got to promote the hell out of this thing, right? And it's good to see you hire a few, you're hiring some, getting the German connections in there and some Canadian presence too. But, those guys, those external promoters for you, they can only do so much, right? Like you got to unleash Richard Kern on the market a little bit too, and just find a way to get all of his intellect and his technical material out there so that somebody, like the Brent Cooks of the world or whatever, these newsletter writers can have something to sink their teeth into when they start wanting to study. Because if you publish a high grade hit, if you have a high grade hit on a good hole in your first program, great. But if you publish those results and you don't have good property maps of where the hit was, where the prior work was, all that kind of stuff, those guys they'll just write you off and they'll just ignore you. And they really don't like it when you don't have your basic geological stuff publicly available. And it's really sad because a lot of times the technical people have done the work, but it's just never made available to the broad public in a way that, and these guys, they if you have to call the management and try and get a map, no, that should be public, right? And everything and when I studied your project over the weekend, I found enough that I was able to sink my teeth into to get to a point where I was comfortable. The only thing I was wondering is where are they drilling for this current program? I couldn't quite figure that out, but it's not, that's okay. Kudos to you on a successful new launch.
Oh no, thank you very much.
On. Pleasure. Thank you, Jeg. Thank you, Peter.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.